Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are running through the third and final game that will air tonight on this small Thursday night NBA slate. The Clippers hosting the Miami Heat, another road team on the second leg of a back-to-back. Some sort of devilish moves there by the schedule makers tonight. 3 road teams on back-to-backs. As we mentioned, we'll be looking at that Heat game after a big overtime loss for them against the Lake Show. Make sure to check out Nate's article up on playpicks.com as well. A bit of in-depth info and some player props on tonight's games. As always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area. Nate, let's jump into Clips and Heat for tonight.
Yeah, the Heat are now +4, up from about +2.5 at that spot, and 211.5 is the total. The other road teams also dogs tonight, as you mentioned, on back-to-backs. The Raptors are +2.5 at Philly, total up to 210 right there. And the Pacers are up to +10 at the Jazz after playing in Denver last night. The Heat are getting bet up because they have just hit the tank in a very small sample size. You know, after posting the best defensive rating in the league by far to start, coming out with a couple statement games against the East. I guess they just kind of let up now that they're out west, and they're saying, no, these aren't statement games at all. They've gone from the top defensive rating to the very worst in their last 2 games, 122 points per 100 possessions, and they're allowing opponents to shoot 38% from deep in that 3-game span, allowing 116 points per game and allowing 15 triples per game. Definitely not a good recipe when you face a spread and shoot team like the Clippers, who are on the opposite kind of streak, right? Almost an inverse type of season where they struggled out of the gates. Now they've won 5 in a row. They're going streaking with the second best net rating, the third best true shooting percentage, and some great defense in that span as well. 4th defensive rating, 4th rebounding percentage, and elite 3-point defense, holding opponents to 33% and 101 points per game. There's a lot to like about the Clippers here, particularly how they might close down the stretch here. They're already giving up the fewest points per game in the fourth quarter. And Miami, after playing the Lakers in overtime last night, playing in Denver 2 nights before, it's just hard to imagine them having a lot of legs left in the fourth quarter. Tyler Hero played 42 minutes last night after being questionable. Bam is questionable again. You wonder if they just kind of cut their losses. They're going to Utah after this, I believe. And it's just like, at some point, they're just not going to continue to go all out at this point in the season. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Cool. He's their leader. And, when he wants to ramp up, they ramp up. But when he decides that it's not necessarily worth it, which is why we saw them go, struggle after a loss since last season, 14-22 against the spread following a loss, and 16-19 as road dogs in that span, and usually struggling with these kind of long road trips out west. So I would trust the Clippers team at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal time in the Miami Heat schedule. I'm not sure how many people have been sort of eyeing this point of their season after we mentioned, a bunch of big wins at the beginning against the Bucks, against the Nets, making some statements there. They've had a brutal schedule of things since really Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Memphis, in Dallas, when their 2 home games in this stretch were the Jazz and the Celtics, where they did pick up a nice win against the Jazz there at home. But since then, at Denver, at the Lakers, now they've got the Clippers, then they're at the Jazz, and then at those pesky Thunder. So it's a weird moment in time to sort of bet on what's going on with Miami, especially when you look at the fact that last night Bam and Tyler Hero were both questionable coming into the game. Both played. Bam put up 32 minutes. Tyler Hero put up 42 minutes himself in that overtime loss. So yeah, it's a weird time to try to bet on them. And inversely, the Clippers, yeah, they've turned things around a ton. But the same way Miami's defense has plummeted by playing incredible teams, teams, right? All top 10 teams in the league right now, probably depending on where you place the C's. Then the Clips on the other side have played all really bad teams, right? Since they had that loss to Cleveland, they lost another one to Portland a couple weeks ago, and then since then they've had the Thunder, the T-Wolves twice, the struggling Hornets, and the Blazers again, who they've now faced 3 times. So the offensive numbers and the defensive numbers, they're both in the top 3 in those last 5 games, as you mentioned, because they got their get right games against some of those bad teams. That doesn't mean that it's not legitimate. You do look at some of the changes that they've made specifically in their lineup, replacing Eric Bledsoe's minutes with Reggie Jackson's minutes, and Rjax, to his credit, has given Ty Lue a reason to do so in that time frame. Putting up pretty decent numbers in about 32 to 33 minutes a game in those 5. So that's a huge difference right there in and of itself. You've got another playmaker, another guy besides Paul George who can actually help this offense. And it was that game against the Blazers that they lost, where they had about 40 points midway through the third quarter. That was when they really started to turn things around. So I like them to continue that momentum tonight. You look at what they do well, as we've mentioned, in terms of the defensive rating. It's where they're allowing points that is going to, I think, be a reason that Miami struggles tonight. Miami's shooting more threes than they have, but they still like to get into the paint with Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, and obviously Bam. And the Clippers, to their credit, have been really good against points in the paint in their last 5 specifically. Once again, not playing any offensive powerhouses, but they are stepping up their game in the right way to be able to handle a Miami team. You look at the Clippers not turning the ball over as well. Miami obviously likes to get that ball from you, go out and run. And when they haven't been able to create those turnovers and they watch the ball go in the net on their defensive side, there's not much that they can do to turn around and use their 3 or 4 guards that are super quality and ball handlers to get to the basket on you. So, 5 points as this has gone up is a good amount. But we might not even see Bam or Tyler Hero tonight, as there's still no Miami props up. We're waiting to see what happens there. But this could get a little bit uglier, especially if 1 or 2 of those guys don't play. So something to monitor for tonight to make sure you grab the Clippers at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, Miami just does not like going to the West Coast too much, and they've lost 5 straight against these Clippers. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 at the Clippers since 2016. I stick with my theory that they're just not going to go all out for this win. No. And I would look really hard at a prop bet for Paul George, as you mentioned, the main man on offense for the Clippers. Only 26.5 points, which is minus money, but the preferred bet is 3.5 threes. I mentioned Miami is giving up a ton of threes. They're giving up 15 per game over their last 3 at a 38% clip. And he's averaging 31 points per game, attempting nearly 12 triples, hitting 6 at 51% in his last 4 against Miami. He's got 30-plus in 3 straight home games against opponents on a back-to-back. He shot 44% from deep at Staples last year, and his usage rate obviously is up with no Kawhi Leonard this year, so it's up to like 35%. Obviously, he will be hoisting. I wouldn't necessarily chase the Reggie Jackson props again, even though that came through for us big time in his last show, because Miami is historically very good against point guards, but PG, I think, will get his against, again, a very tired team.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Reggie Jackson he's put up 21.5 in his last 5 when he's finally gotten those minutes back from Eric Bledsoe. Once again, didn't play the greatest competition in those 5 games, but it's still pretty good money tonight. If you did want to consider Reggie Jackson, understanding how well Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler play at the top of that defense specifically, I would still say 20 points for him, which is under what he's been averaging as of late, and a win for these Clippers to get rid of that sort of 5-point spread there. Plus 240 on your money at FanDuel. These player performance doubles usually work out, at least for a couple guys. You just got to find the right one, and it's either Paul George or Reggie Jackson tonight, in my opinion, and the Clippers get it done. So that is all the time that we have for today. Nate, make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We'll be coming back to y'all soon with a gift card opportunity, so do need to be liked and subscribed to be eligible. And until we see you next, happy betting.